Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 11th live discussion focusing on EU Sectoral Dialogue, how sectoral social partners collaborate to promote and develop apprenticeships. We have the pleasure of having with us today representatives of officially recognized social partner organizations who are engaged in social dialogue at the European level, and they come from two different particular sectors: hospitality on the one hand and construction on the other. These sectoral social partners have joined the European Alliance for Apprenticeships with a so-called EAfA sectoral pledge, involving other aspects in encouraging quality apprenticeship partnerships and addressing vet issues at European level and via their member organizations. So to all our participants watching, please feel free to leave comments or ask questions in the chat during the event, and we'll do our best to raise these with our panelists during our question and answer session at the end. Now, to set us off, I'd like to hand over to Norbert Scherbel, who is the team leader of the Apprenticeships, VET and Adult Learning Unit at DG Employment within the European Commission. He's going to set the scene for you today. So over to you, Norbert, to tell us what the latest information is on the question of the European apprenticeship pledge situation is. Over to you.
Thank you, Jeff, and welcome to everybody to this live discussion. I just want to a little bit start and set the scene, because I think, first of all, not everybody is familiar what we mean by sectoral social dialogue. Actually, it's quite important that we have to think about two main principles. One is the principle of subsidiarity, particularly when we talk about education and training. And the other one, which is also very important, is the autonomy of social partners. And social partners play a key role, particularly not only, as we call it, cross-industry, but also, and even more in the future, that's my feeling, at sectoral level. Now, these sectoral social dialogue committees, as they exist, and I counted them again, there are 43 in total together, play an important role. They have, first of all, it's important to understand that they are bipartite, so it means that they represent employers and workers' organizations, so trade unions. And in addition, we need to know that they are not tripartite, like, for instance, the ACVT, which is the Advisory Committee for Vocational Education Training, and where we also have governmental representatives. So the EU Sectoral Social Dialogue Committees are bipartite. And what is also important to know, they have two main important roles. One is related to Article 154 to the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union. They need to be consulted on everything important related to the social Europe. So that is really something which we from the Commission always have to respect. In addition, what is maybe less known, they can also negotiate agreements, be it implemented autonomously by the social partner themselves. And some of the agreements can also be implemented through a directive. That is very, very important to know. It does not happen that often, but this is really something that these European social partners can do. And I give you just one example. It was signed just recently. Women in Rail, there was just an autonomous agreement of European social partners in the railway sector, being a contribution to the European Year of Rail. Of course, European social partners do a lot more than being consulted and also negotiate agreement. They develop a lot of documents, tools, guidelines, and so on. And I'm not in the position to say more, because I think we have the best representatives today here from two sectors, as Jeff, you just mentioned. One is the hospitality sector, which has, I think, suffered a lot from COVID. And then construction sector, which has maybe less suffered, but is a sector which has always been very active at the level of on apprenticeship, but also I think a sector which is particularly important when we talk about the greening of our economies. Just, I think there's another slide showing how many sectors so far have joined the European Alliance. If you can just show, now you can see we have 9 sectors who have joined the Alliance. And you see that 2 of them are underlined, construction, hospitality, but we have more of them. And of course, we would like also, but this is not for today, invite other sectors to join, be it on the trade union side, be it on the employer side, or even better, jointly through a joint pledge, as it has been done by the construction and the hospitality sector. I stop here because I think live discussion means we should give the floor to those who have to say something really important. So Jeff, please give the floor to our key speakers.
Okay, thank you very much, Norbert, for your introductory comments. I'll just now introduce the speakers, and I'll ask you please to turn your cameras on so we can all get an opportunity to see who you are. So let's start off with Kerstin Havald, who is Political Secretary at EFAT, the European Federation of Food, Agriculture and Tourism Trade Unions. Kerstin has a background in tourism. She's the sector secretary for tourism, and she's a coordinator of the European Trade Union Liaison Committee on Tourism. Our second panelist is also from the hospitality sector, representing the employers. Her name is Marta Machado, the Deputy Director General of HOTREC, and that's a European umbrella organization of hotels, restaurants, bars and cafes in Europe, which she joined 10 years ago. As a legal expert, she's focused her attention on several policy and legislative topics within the hospitality sector, including social affairs, sustainability, food, travel, and tourism. Now let's turn to the construction sector. We've got Angela Martina, an Italian entrepreneur and chairwoman of the commission dedicated to vocational education and training at FIEC. That's the European Construction Industry Federation. And Angela leads the family-run business called Impresa Martina and holds several top positions in the local industry federations, including the presidency of the local organization dedicated to the training of construction professionals. And last but not least, we've got Rolf Hofgering, who's a political secretary for safety and health at the EFBWW, which is the European Federation of Building and Woodworkers Union. Once he was an apprentice himself. He has a background from the German Metalworkers Union, IG Metall, and from a youth council, and working at the national level in Germany. And he's been working at the EFBWW since 2006. So those are our guests, our panelists. I will just explain very briefly that we're going to have 3 blocks of interventions. And the first one is going to be on the concrete examples from EU Social Dialogue and the EAfA sectoral pledges. So I'd like to start off asking a question to you all. Can you offer us concrete examples of how you work to promote apprenticeship at the EU level? And as a supplementary question, I'd like to know what made you join EAfA by making a sectoral pledge? And what success have you had in implementing your pledge? What have you actually done? So there's a lot of opportunities there to put forward your ideas, I hope. And let's start off with Kerstin, who's representing the EFAT trade union organization at the European level. Would you like to begin, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you very much also to Norbert and the ECORIS team for organizing this meeting and giving us a chance to expose what we have been done on apprenticeships in our social dialogue. Probably first a few words on EAfA. So EAfA is one of the European trade union federations. As you said, we represent workers along the food chain. We have more than 2 million members, more than 120 member organizations in more than 35 countries, and we represent the interests of more than 25 million workers in our sectors. So, I mean, I will a bit start setting the scene. I think Marta will go more into concrete examples later on. So the Sectoral Social Dialogue, HoReCa, exists since 1984. And since then, really, the questions of vocational education and training qualification have been very high on our agenda. A few examples. So we had, for instance, in 2000, we had a survey on the joint structures, institutions of social partners at national level with regard to vocational training and hospitality and the role of social partners. 2003, 2004, we looked into boosting e-learning because in the sector, a lot of SMEs, difficult to set workers free to get trained. 2004, we had a joint recommendation on training development in this sector. In 2004, when the Europass started, we started discussions of a qualification and skills passport in HoReCa. We had several projects. And then in 2013, probably the major achievement is our European Hospitality Skills Passport, which was then with the skills list put on the EURES portal. So just to set the scene. So, and then when in 2013, the European Alliance for Apprenticeship started, we discussed it in our social dialogue, and we submitted the pledge in 2016. So the title of the pledge is the Joint Pledge to Enhance Quality and Attractiveness of Apprenticeships Schemes in the European Hotel and Restaurant sector. So we agreed on some actions. We wanted to encourage our member organizations to promote apprenticeships because we think this first of all, facilitates entrance of young people, of young workers into the labor market. It assures qualified workers for the sector, and it also contributes to fight youth unemployment. And we also wanted to encourage our member organizations to enhance the attractiveness of apprenticeships in schemes in their countries. So two more comments before Marta goes more into the details. I think we were very pleased that when in March 2018, the Council recommendation on the European Framework for Quality and Effective Apprenticeships was published, because we think that those criteria which are laid down there are very important for successful apprenticeships. Secondly, I think what we were also very pleased about was when the EAfA support service team was established. I think it was in 2019, because we think it's really good to better monitor the implementation of the pledges, but also what we thought was a very good development was that the pledges as such were modified, that now anybody who wants to submit a pledge has really also to confirm to respect the principles of the European framework. Because we saw that also earlier that some of the submitted pledges, particularly those of some big companies, rather gave the impression to be being driven by PR purposes rather than giving more to give a good picture for the company than really wanting to achieve better apprenticeship. So I leave it with this. Marta, please go more into the details what we have been done in this sector. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Kerstin. And yes, we will turn now to Marta, who's representing the Umbrella Association of Hotels, Restaurants, Bars and Cafes. What examples can you offer of how the employers have been promoting VET and apprenticeships in more concrete terms?
Thanks a lot, Jeff, and thank you very much to the European Commission for organizing the event today. Very happy to be here with Kirsten, exchanging some views and really talking about our experience on the apprenticeship schemes. So HOTREC, just to give you an idea, also employs around 12 million people. We represent about 2 million companies. And we represent 45 associations in 34 different countries. Replying directly to your question, Jeff, I think our activity when it comes to apprenticeship schemes and to the applicability of the pledge that Kirsten was talking about really is facing the most good achievement when we have our plenary meetings on the sectoral social dialogue, because this is really the opportunity that we have for our members to show their best practices at national level when it comes to apprenticeship schemes. And we had very good examples, for instance, coming from Austria, from Sweden, and it is really by doing that that we really try to motivate and encourage those other countries who still don't have such a developed apprenticeship scheme in place, or even don't have it at all. A good example is, for instance, what we are going to do before COVID was to ask also Latvia to present what they are doing, because it has been only recently that they have been developing this kind of apprenticeship scheme with their social partner at national level. Of course, they are probably still in the beginning of the phase, but still it would be of extreme importance. So for us, it is really a way in these plenary meetings of trying to encourage our members to develop more at national level, to explain why is it important to attract and retain the workforce in our sector. And it's really important as well to emphasize the quality of the trainings for us. More examples of what we have been doing as a HOTREC, apart from the plenary action and the plenary meetings. So we have the recently developed communication campaign on COVID, in order to really try to alert people for the fact that we need to be together for hospitality. And within this communication campaign, we had a video where we were really pledging for the development of apprenticeship schemes at national level. An example. Apart from that, all our position papers, namely the joint position papers that we have developed with EFAT, and namely during the crisis, all point out the benefits of having high quality apprenticeship schemes at national level. And last but not least, of course, all the social media campaigns and our communication towards members, our websites, etc., really have these as well precisely pledged. If you ask as well more broadly, what are the advantages that we see on EAfA, I think that even if it's not focusing on the hospitality sector, we can always learn from each other, from the examples that we hear from other companies, from other associations, and we think that it is within a joint effort and joint ideas that we can actually improve and still pass these messages to our members. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Marta. I think there's a very important point that you put there about the need to be able to put forward the benefits that there are, particularly for employers, because obviously they are key to the ways in which the system will work. And if they don't recognize what the benefits are, then it's going to be very difficult to be able to launch apprenticeships in different countries. Okay, thanks very much indeed. Well, that was very interesting from your perspective in hospitality. Now let's move over to the construction sector. I'd like to ask you to speak next, Angela. What have you done? Why have you done it? Why have you made the pledge? What concrete difference has that made? Over to you, please, Angela. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Historically, apprenticeship has been an important topic in our social dialogue work, and it is an important step for us to join the EAfA. At the EU level, FIEC and EFBWW have a long-standing cooperation, and I will try to give you some very quick examples of this cooperation. In 2015, they signed together a pledge in the framework of our partnership with EAfA. And EAfA brings us a lot of knowledge and experience and best practices on the matter. So we're very pleased of that. Then we are preparing a pact for skills in the construction sector, and the promotion of apprenticeship is a part of it. And then there are some other projects at the EU level. One of these is that we have a website that is called Youth website, and it's kind of a showcase of national good practices, and apprenticeship are part of it. And then Vet for Lek, which promotes low energy construction in the VET systems, and the goal is to attract young people, so it's very close to apprenticeship. And then Construction Blueprint, this is actually not a social dialogue project, but both FIEC and EFBWW are involved. And it goes much beyond the issue of apprenticeship, but apprenticeship is part of it too. This is for the EU point level, and for national level, I would try to speak to give you some examples about Italy. And so there is an interesting recent project with Italian and Spanish social partners. It's called Co-Tutor, and deals with the improvement of participation of construction small and medium-sized enterprises, which are most of the construction companies in Italy, in the training programs. It is an important part also of apprenticeship. Fixo project that is promoted by Formedil, and the partners are the building schools. 7 building schools in Italy. One of these was the building school of Udine, which I'm the chairwoman of. And the aim was to develop the apprenticeship and the alternation. And the outcomes were very interesting. 50% of the young people who participated in the project found work in the same company where they did apprenticeship. All the young people acquired technical skills, and all the companies that hired young people for apprenticeship were very satisfied. We can't hear you.
Excuse me. That's very interesting. You mentioned a couple of projects that you've been involved in. You did use the one word blueprint, and I'm not sure that all our listeners will know what that is. Can you explain that it's a large-scale project at the European level, which is specifically involved in supporting apprenticeships? Would that be a reasonable way of presenting what it is?
Yes, the aim of the blueprint is to attract people in construction, in the construction sector, which has a big problem in having people, and in particular attracting young people. And so many initiatives are in the blueprint project, and since young people is involved, also apprenticeship is a part of it.
Thanks very much indeed. That's very helpful for us to be able to follow what you're saying. And now the final speaker in the first block is Rolf. Would you like to tell us some of the things that you're doing in the European trade union movement as far as apprenticeships is concerned?
Yes, thank you, Jeff, and thank you to the organizers, and welcome to all participants and those who are following the stream. It's a very good opportunity to talk about an important issue on the European level, which is vocational education and training, important for social partners, but also, of course, important for other policymakers, the European Commission, the Parliament, the Council, and so on. Thankfully, Norbert said a bit the frame, or was explaining framework conditions, what means social dialogue on European level. And I think when reflecting about specific action or instruments on European, like EAfA, the European Alliance for Apprenticeships, it is also worthwhile to reflect a bit about the structure in which we are working. So, and maybe I close the circle a bit with that. The European Union is not responsible for education. It's not a policy area where we set the legal conditions, but we have the method of open coordination that allows the European Union to be initiative, but on a scale which is underneath legal action. So that is a bit the framework condition for our activities. And insofar, we as social partners, FIEC and us, EFBWW, we consider EAfA as a tool we can use. We can use to what? The EU is not responsible. Therefore, there is no hierarchical strategy or structure to have initiatives which are implemented, initiatives we develop on European level and then implement on national or even company level. What we can do is bringing people together. And that is exactly how we use EAfA as an opportunity to invite people from national level, social partners, but then also the other stakeholders, because as social partners on our own, we are not able to move things. It is a highly specialized field, vocational education, with curricula, with structures, with training institutes. And for us as social partners, we are autonomous, but in the field of vocational education and training, and in this way we also use EAfA, we always look to bring together stakeholders to have an impact. So from our point of view, it is also not possible to export a specific system. There was a lot of discussions around the dual system in Germany and whether other countries could not copy that, but learn from it. From our point of view, it is extremely difficult because such a system has a connotation and a long history with long roots, which you cannot export. It is as you try to dig out an old tree and plant it somewhere else. So our activities in the framework on build up skills or with projects like the Blueprint and also the EAfA is being as practical as possible. And Angela thankfully mentioned already this VET for LEC, which is also in a project we worked out to make specific proposals and to show how people can work and can improve, but we don't say that is the way you have to improve. That is a bit the restriction, I would say. But nevertheless, we can, of course, use this Pact for Skills and the EAfA. In the EAfA framework, we have the Pact of Skills to go further. And one idea we have as unions, for the moment not discussed in the social dialogue construction, but in other social dialogues we are involved, is the idea of launching an Erasmus for apprentices. I will come back to the content maybe in another block, which where it fits better to talk about it. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rolf. That's very interesting in terms of introductory comments that you've all made. There's one sort of larger question, and this has been put forward by someone who is following our discussion about, is it possible to still talk about apprenticeships in the way that we have done in the past, given that the labour market is changing so much, but there is more precarious employment? Is this going to make it more and more difficult to be able to launch apprenticeship programs in different countries? Would one of you like to make a comment on that, please? Go ahead, Kerstin.
Yes, thanks for this question. I mean, first of all, I would say the new world of work is not so new. So, I mean, what we have been observing over all those last years is that the labor market has evolve, but is also continuously evolving on a permanent basis. So I think what's probably really the question here is that it's a pity that we see a lot of deviations from the standard forms of work, which are full-time, not open-ended contracts. And it's a pity that often this deviation is seen as a clever option and can bring companies or employers some sort of competitive advantage. So I think what we have to really realize is that we have a common interest to guarantee a level playing field for all workers. So no matter in what kind of work situation they are, whether they are full-time, part-time, temporary workers, platform workers, or self-employed. So we have really have to make sure that all those have the same conditions, working time, salary, social protection, health and safety, collective agreement coverage, workers' rights. So there shouldn't be any incentives for companies to shop for the cheapest, let's say. And I think this really has to be reflected also in European labor and social legislation. And it's also in the treaty. It's enshrined in the treaty. We have the task to improve working and living conditions and to strive for an upward social cohesion. I mean, okay, the role of vocational education and training, I think we are convinced that high quality vocational education training is important for the recovery and for the survival of every business, and also certainly for the hospitality sector. But sometimes we doubt that there's really the seriousness of employers when claiming that they need trained, qualified staff. So we see, for instance, just an example, we see transnational hotel chains which are recruiting their staff via casting shows. So they are looking for looks and performance, and even HR people saying, yeah, skills you can train quickly on the spot, but attitude you cannot train. So we see there's a little shift away from the real need or the real appreciation. So what we think that first of all, there should be a level playing field with regard to employment, same rights and protection for all, and that there should be a real valuation of vocational education and training and qualifications.
Thanks very much, Kerstin. Marta, I know that you want to speak, and Rolf, I know that you want to speak too. Perhaps Angela, but I just would like us to move on, but I haven't forgotten that you would like to speak, and I'm sure we'll find another opportunity as we go through this particular session. Let's get on to block 2 then, and let's talk about sectoral challenges and making apprenticeships a part of the solution. We know that each sector faces different but very significant challenges. Hospitality plays a key role in the ongoing economic post-COVID recovery, given its potential to create new jobs for young people, some of whom are often in a very vulnerable position within the labour market. Construction, on the other hand, has always had, in many aspects, a very lively apprenticeship tradition. A lot of the jobs in construction are high-quality jobs, skilled jobs for which training is required. So clearly in both of these sectors, in different ways, there is a need to be able to see which ways in which apprenticeships can benefit not only employers but also employees or apprentices and future employees themselves. So let's start with Marta this time. Would you like to respond to some of those points and take us, as it were, forward in seeing the extent to which apprenticeships are part of the solution? And then I'll come back to Kerstin.
Yes, thanks a lot, Jeff. Well, to reply directly to your question, we really consider apprenticeship schemes part of the solution. Already before COVID, we had a lot of lack of skills, for instance, digital, interpersonal skills, language skills, now also greening attitude. And what we consider it is fundamental is really to map every now and then the skills needs of the sector, and we really need to also update the curricula very often, as often as needed. And we think that for these, the companies and also the social partners need really to be in direct contact with the vocational education and training providers at all times, because otherwise there is no way that the curricula is really updated and ready to be used by the companies. When it comes to certification, we consider that it might be the case that employees are happy with their certificates, but what we really consider fundamental is really the qualifications and the validity of the knowledge provided by the VET providers. Really, we consider that VET should be promoted and should be actually an entry door in the job market. We say many times that we don't have the skills that are needed, so this is really the way forward in order to maybe start a career in our sector. And now with COVID, things changed even more. We think that on a first solution, we would really need massive trainings in order to really have the qualified workforce we need for the moment, because we also lacking employees in the sector right now due to the many months of uncertainty that employees needed to face. Many even chose other sectors probably. But it is in the long run that we see the apprenticeship schemes really with an added value, and therefore we really hope that member states at national level are putting apprenticeships schemes and this upskilling and reskilling of the employees top in their agendas, and we hope that the recovery and resilience facility will really be a response to the problems that we are facing at the moment, which are not over. Unfortunately, we continue facing them. And now, if you allow me just 1 minute more to reply to what Kirsten had just said when she was replying to the question from the audience. I mean, times evolve and things are not the same as they were years ago. Many people, they don't look for a job from 9 until 5. In our sector, it needs to be adaptable with shifts and everything, because there are the night shifts. The people need to prepare meals at dinner time, lunch time, etc. Also during the weekend. But what we really need are diverse and adaptable forms of work. Many people look for different schedules in order to improve their work-life balance. They prefer to work only part-time. We need to support these career choices. It is also important to understand the diversification of the willingness of a part-time employee or even a self-employed. A self-employed might be willing to be a self-employed because they might be willing to have different tasks, performing different activities. When it comes to the social contributions, we are also not really in line with what Kirsten just said. As we have said, this is subsidiarity. It is for national governments to determine how the social contributions must be provided. And this is the reason why for platform workers, we really consider that it should be advisable that a recommendation would be put forward and not a directive. I would continue later on if possible. Thank you very much.
Your mic.
Back to you now, Kirsten, and could you put the emphasis a little bit more on apprenticeships in what you've got to say?
I wanted to rather put the emphasis a bit more on the challenges to then come back to the apprenticeships. I mean, as Marta said, that the probably the most the biggest challenge in the sector is for the moment really the shortage of staff. And as Marta said, that it was really due to the months of closure of the businesses, and then the extended furlough schemes, short-time arrangements, but also the uncertainty of many workers that many of them have chosen to seek for work in other sectors, and then they found jobs elsewhere. I mean, and then in those sectors, they often realized that Probably the wages are not necessarily better, but probably the working conditions are better. So more predictable. They didn't have to work these unsocial hours and so on. So what we really see for the moment I think in almost all countries in the EU, that the hospitality businesses have really difficulties to find workers, and some of them have to stay closed. So for us, it's very clear that it's about the conditions in the sector. We have to improve them. We have to make working there more attractive. We have to make it more easily to combine it with work and work with private and family life. So, and I think it's possible. So it is possible also with catering for the needs for the sector. And yes, we really think that vocational education and training and apprenticeships can be a part of the solution, because the sector needs staff and needs qualified staff if they want to continue providing quality services. But therefore, we really have to make sure that training is of high quality, that the qualifications are recognized and valued, and that those who are having those qualifications and who graduate from apprenticeships really then also have a perspective, a professional path, a career perspective in the sector. So this is for us really the major issues which are important if we see apprenticeships and vocational education and training as a solution. And I mean, very clearly, all this has to be done in close cooperation with the involvement of the social partners at all the different levels.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, Kerstin. So we'll switch sectors now, and we'll go over to the construction sector. Angela, what would you like to present for us in terms of the sectoral challenges that you face and the ways in which apprenticeships can be a part of the solution? Over to you.
Thanks. First of all, I want to say that I didn't know, but hospitality and construction system are closer than I thought, because a construction system counts to 12.7 million workers in the EU. That's kind of close to you. And the sector suffers from a significant lack of workers and of skilled workers in particular. And so this will have a negative impact, we think, on the green and digital transition, and the construction sector has a key role to achieve the EU's goals in this field. So we need to skill and to upskill the workers, and to guarantee that the training system is adapted to the new market needs. So we think that apprenticeship is an efficient and important tool to attract and to train young people in our sector, and to combine learning and work experience. That is fundamental. And so at EU and also national level, we think that the goal is to promote it further and to do our best to make a high quality of apprenticeship. And then I will give you just some examples of what the difficulties that we have in apprenticeship, in particular in Italy, maybe. So there are difficulties that the training institutions find in widening the companies that want to activate the apprenticeship. But because we have to know that most of the companies, and Italian construction companies in particular, are small enterprises, and so they have difficulties in making an investment with a medium long term horizon, face the limitations in case of hiring a minor, and also face the high training capacity that apprenticeship requires sometimes, in particular the dual apprenticeship, and also to find the availability of qualified employers that can carry out the role of tutor. And so we think that if we can face and solve these problems, but some of those are structural problems in the construction system, and we can face this problem, we can make apprenticeship even more useful.
Thanks very much for that. I mean, I think there's some important points that you've mentioned there, particularly in terms of ensuring, for instance, that there are the appropriate trainers who are looking after or accompanying the progress of the apprentices. There was a point made earlier on as well of the extent to which the vocational education and training institutions are providing the sort of skills that you need off the job. And this is one of the problems that we see, or the challenges that we see with apprenticeships, is that there are many stakeholders, and it's very important to ensure that they're all working together across the whole piece. Rolf, over to you. What would you like to say about the challenges from your perspective and the ways in which apprenticeships can be promoted?
Yeah, I think it is complementary to what Angela, but also the two other colleagues have said. I would make a distinction between traditional, current, and future challenges. So we have traditional challenges we have not solved. Everyone is talking about the bad reputation of construction amongst young people and in the society. It is dirty work and it is hard work and so on, which is true. So still, only a very few percentage of scaffolders, for example, reach their retirement age as scaffolder because their ankles or their musculoskeletal system is damaged, too much damaged. That is a traditional challenge. Actual challenge is working forms of employment and working conditions. So our sector is suffering from all type of what we call precarious work, and the first element or the first let's say consequence of precarious work is often that you are outside from training and that you are outside from health and safety services. So that marks a problem. Also an actual but also future problem is what we now discuss under transition, and new technologies like cobots, building module with electronic digital tools, and some other elements. That requires new skills needed, and that is not manageable without the structural training of workers already working in the sector. But the starting point is apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is a starting point, but we immediately need to combine it with further training. I come from the industrial engineering, and it was already in the 80s, it was clear that once you did your apprenticeship, you were already looking what comes next. And in construction, it will become the same. So we have to make some efforts. I like to give also a little comment because it's of important for the value of apprenticeship. Marta has chosen an angle which is the company needs, but we also have to discuss apprenticeship as part of an individual right. It is a question at what point we leave young persons from the education system. We have primary education, and we have then those who become students. And nobody would say, oh, we have changes in the society. It's not any longer needed to go to a university to become whatever degree you have in the end. We need that. And the same is for the practical jobs for apprenticeships. So we need to have an idea what is the basic qualification, and that is not only primary school, and how can we ensure, even so we have new forms of employment and so on, how can we ensure that independently on the form of employment and working conditions, people have finally a kind of apprenticeship successfully finalized and can work in this profession independently. That is our aim.
Thanks very much, Rolf. You mentioned digital skills. We've got a question or a comment from someone in the chat who's talking about soft skills. Have you seen in one of your sectors the evolution that has taken place in terms of the curricula of the different apprenticeship programs? Or rather, has it been difficult to be able to introduce these new changes? I know sometimes because of the importance of consulting the different stakeholders, that change in curricula can be quite a difficult process because you've got to align so many different points of view. What are your feelings on that? Is it the case that the skills are changing so radically? I think I will say from the outset that we've got time for one person, and I know that Marta wanted to speak before, and I know that Rolf wanted to speak before. So who would like to answer that question?
Maybe both of us, only one sentence. It is extremely difficult to implement. And secondly, it varies from one to another country. That is what I said in the beginning. So we work on European level, but we don't have a concept or an idea how to proceed for all countries. That depends on the national structures. Very difficult, but absolutely needed.
Now, Marta, there's a challenge for you. Rolf said it was possible to do that within one sentence. I'm not actually sure that he did use one sentence, but I'm looking to you now to see if you can give a response in one sentence, which could possibly move over to two sentences. Over to you.
Well, as I said before, the skills really need to be mapped very often, and it is based on that, exactly as Rolf has said. That every single country will do the mapping needs of the curricula that is needed to be developed. As short as that.
That was marvelous. Thank you very much for a very concise response. And that's, I hope, has given something of an answer to one of the persons who's watching this and asking questions in the chat. So let's move now into the third and final block, which is specifically to do with lessons learned. So my question is, how do social partners best collaborate to achieve an impact? And what are the key ingredients for successful social partner collaboration? What are the lessons that you have learned from this? And this shouldn't be difficult, because we know that to support apprenticeships, employers need skills, trade unions need to provide a service to their members and future members, and workers need to acquire new skills and competencies. So this is a win-win-win situation, in fact. And what's the best way of taking this forward? Now, we've had Kirsten to start before, we've had Marta to start before. Let's go backwards now and start with Rolf, and then Angela, and then Marta, and then Kirsten. So Rolf first.
Yeah, thank you. I come back to what I said in the beginning. From my point of view, we have an institutional framework, and you were talking about the employer side and the worker side, trade unions and employer federations or companies. And I think when talking about apprenticeship and progress in this field, we have to take on board other stakeholders. That is first and foremost the training institutes. And on European level, we made quite some good experiences, not only in construction, especially in the woodworking sectors, where, for example, we run a project that is called DigitFur, the digitalization in the furniture sector. And that was exactly asking the questions, what type of business models we expect in the future, and what does it mean for vocational education and training and for health and safety in this sector. And with this expertise, we were able to present not a new curricula for specific professions, but we were able to present aspects which are of importance independently on what type of training system you have in your country. So here again, we can provide as European social partners examples, input. That is, I think, one of the big advantages. That's all for the moment, not to rob too much time.
Thanks very much, Rolf. Over to you, Angela. What would you like to say on this question of lessons learned?
Okay, I will tell you something about how it works in the Italian system that I know better. And the Italian construction sector, in the Italian construction sector, the primary role about apprenticeship and vet aspects is carried by Formedil and the building schools. This is a paritarian system that originates from the national collective bargaining. And so in this system, social partners are involved indeed, and both employers and workers are represented in this body. And the main task for Formedil is to promote and coordinate training and qualification and all the initiatives. And the training centers of the sector are the building schools. And the building schools are job oriented. So they have theory and practice together, because there are also the laboratories and there are the simulated construction sites. And so the training profiles are defined together by the social partners, and so together by employers and workers that are represented in this system.
Thank you very much. Over to you now, Marta. What would you like to say from your perspective within the hospitality sector?
I think from the experience that our members told us that they have developed at national level, it is really clear that when there is a strong collective bargaining, it is always very easier to really implement and develop the apprenticeship schemes in a positive way. When it is not the case, in those countries where collective bargaining agreements are not so well developed, we really recommend that all partners are involved as much as possible, namely the social partners, but again, the vet providers, the workers. I also agree. I mean, it's important as well to listen to their perspective, but of course as well the companies. Everyone should be really involved in order to get a good implementation, a good planning about what is the apprenticeship about, in order to have a high quality and attractiveness for the employee. Thank you.
I don't hear you, Jeff, but I suppose that you want to give me the floor.
Yes, I will give you the floor, and I will put my mic on. But now I'll take it off again. Over to you, Kerstin. Let's hear what you've got to say about lessons learned from your own perspective.
Yeah, I think what we really, what has shown that the cooperation of the social partners is key in this respect, but also the involvement of the social partners in the planning, in the implementation, and the evaluation of all qualification and training measures. So at all levels, so be it at national level, where the social partners are often involved in the development of curricula, of vocational education and training, but also at company level, where social partners can jointly identify the training needs of the staff. And we have some very good examples. And I agree with Marta that often where we have strong collective bargaining, there this works very well. But also, for instance, in the UK, we have a system of union learning reps, where there are representatives, workers' representatives in the companies, which identify the training needs. I think in this respect, with the involvement of the social partners, it's very interesting to look into the recent publication of the Commission on the evaluation of the implementation of the European framework. So 2.5 years after the adoption, so where they look really how all these criteria which are in the framework have been adopted. And there is one interesting part on the criterion of the involvement of the social partners, because the perception is very different. The member states say 70% fully implemented, 22 say it's initially implemented, and only 8% say, oh, we are not there yet. But if they ask the stakeholders, they have a totally different view. Only 36% say that the social partners are fully involved, and 21 say initially, and then the rest is saying that nothing has been done on this. So I think this is probably very interesting to look at this different perception of the actors And probably we have to look closer into who are the social partners in the different countries, and how is involvement defined, because it's very not very clear. And I agree with Marta that in those countries where the social partners are strongly involved, that there are those, for instance, the dual systems in Germany, in Austria, and Denmark, that often this works very well. So apprenticeships, vocational education and training is really working well, providing a lot of qualified workers. Although we also see that even with apprenticeships, when they are working well, there can be some problems. They can often be not so attractive. For instance, you might know that the German Trade Union Confederation does annual reports on apprenticeships. And there, for instance, very often the hospitality sector is at the end, is the red light. Many people drop out. So I think there is also much room for improvement jointly. And I think we have really make sure that those who graduate from apprenticeships, that they really get jobs offered after that, but then also that they are retained in the sector, so that they can really, that their qualification is valued, but that they have attractive conditions and perspectives in the sector. But I mean, Rolf talked about the importance of training institutions, but I think also here the member states, I think, have to play an important role. They have to support apprenticeships, to keep them going, because we saw now with the pandemic that many apprenticeships just stopped, or people dropped out. So, and I think here the member states also have a role to play. Like, for instance, in Germany, where the government gave incentives to companies to keep apprentices, or to offer new apprenticeship positions, but also in Austria, for just another example, where they created some external structures where people could do work-related training when the companies were closed. So that's some of my proposals here of lessons learned.
Thank you very much, Kerstin. I think that's important, what you say. The word involvement is a very elastic term, and sometimes it can be very close involvement, and sometimes it can be less close. But certainly from my perspective, it's particularly important that the social partners are involved in the different aspects of the design and development of apprenticeship training, to ensure that, one, the training is good, and two, that it corresponds to the needs of the labour market. I think it was interesting as well that you drew to our attention, and I'd like to just speak about this for a couple of seconds myself. Kerstin, you made a reference to this new evaluation that's taken place in response to the progress after the approval of the EU recommendation. And for those people who are listening to us, I would recommend that this can be obtained from the European Commission website, and it's a very interesting read. There are a lot of very good points in it, and there's a lot of progress made. And interestingly, in some countries, there is progress made that perhaps might have not seen the light of day were it not for an EU recommendation to be able to take some of these ideas forward. You mentioned another point there as well, Kerstin, which I think might be of interest to our listeners, and that is the question of the evaluation report that the German Trade Union Confederation does every year. The particularly important thing about it is, of course, it is a survey of the views of apprentices themselves. And this is an opportunity to be able to get some feedback, not just from employers, not just from trade unions, but also for the people who've gone through the process themselves. And of course, there is the mention as well of the member states, and member states have a critical role, if only because they are, well, not if only, but so that they provide the framework for apprenticeship training to take place, whether that's as a result of introduction to new legal possibilities, or new regulatory possibilities, or funding possibilities. These are all important issues, and member states clearly need to play their role as well. There's one other stakeholder that we haven't spoken about too much, and this comes from a question from someone in Belgium saying that, can you give us examples of good relations between social partners on the one hand and enterprises on the other, and also clearly the VET institutions? Is that possible to be able to provide some good examples of ways in which they should work together? Here again, I think at this particular stage, I'll say we'll have a response from one person, and because we will have time for everyone to be able to participate in the latter part. But is there any one of you that would like to make a comment about the importance of links to VET institutions? You're all looking relatively shy. No, Rolf isn't. That's good news for me, at least. Okay, Rolf, over to you. A short response. I don't know whether it's going to be one.
I wasn't that. Pardon, I wasn't that long with the last intervention. So, but no, we have examples of that, and one is Soccerbau. That is a German training provider. Is a paritarian organization. Is not an institute as such, but coordinates and cooperates with institutes, and they are running a project on dual learning and cross-border apprenticeship, they call it. So they create a network where people have the opportunity going cross-border for a while and have a part of their apprenticeship in other countries. This is a wonderful, I think, example. I could talk about similar examples from the furniture and woodworking sector, but that is not our topic today. But these exist already, and that comes together a bit what I said. What can we provide? That is not a hierarchical structure, but is more a system of communicating pipes, let's say. Because if something changed at workplace level, before we know that on European level, that may need a few years. But people, the employer, the provider of new technology, and the workers, they see it from the beginning. And the closer we come to the workplace, let's say, in our communication, and we bring together the various levels, the earlier we know what happens, and we can start thinking about what to do. And in this respect, we also need the science, for example. Our Wet for Leg project that was dealing with low energy construction and the technological changes towards this low energy construction. And we did that jointly with institutes providing vocational education and training, and also people from universities from various levels. That was exactly such a cooperation which provided up-to-date information on a specific topic.
Thanks very much, Rolf. We've got a comment here. Yes, it's very helpful about the evaluation that's been done by the European Commission. And if those of you listening to us, if you have a little look now at the chat, you'll see that there is the opportunity to be able to find this evaluation, which has been referred to only about 10 minutes ago. So thanks very much for those responses to the 3 different sets of questions within these different blocks. I'm looking for other questions that there might be from those people who are following us. And if you are listeners who would like to make a comment, don't hesitate to speak within the chat. And I'd also like to come back to 1 or 2 things that we've been discussing within our discussions this afternoon. And I'd like to, it's hard not to consider the often quite awful consequences of COVID. And this has been, as we know, I won't say catastrophic, that's too strong, but it's been very, very difficult particularly for the hospitality sector, with the lockdowns and the different problems that have been experienced within the sector. How do you feel, you two, in terms of being able to build up employment again within the sector and the role that apprenticeships could play in this process? Marta or Kerstin? And it'll be possible to say more than one sentence, if that encourages you to speak.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Well, I have to tell you, as I also touched upon in one of my interventions already today, unfortunately for our sector, the crisis is still on. And the fact that many of the companies are open, that does not mean that they are fully recovered. We are still now in the phase of really having shortage of liquidity, of having the threat of going through insolvencies maybe next year when state aid comes to an end. And on top of everything, we also see the lack of employees in the sector. So how do you see the sector recovering? And some of our members tell us that only if everything goes well by 2023, 2024, that would be possible. We see three phases. One would be the short term, where we think that really the EU funding possibilities should be extended as long as needed. And we really hope that the state aid will be at least extended until June next year. We are hoping now that the Commission announces that. That goes for the state aid, but it's not only the only way. We think that all the other EU funding possibilities that the Commission has put forward are more than welcome and really should be encouraged at national level, because what we see from our members is that, for instance, all those facilities that have been put forward in the cohesion programs, our members really don't know how to react. We have facilitated, with the cooperation of the Commission, a workshop on cohesion policy exactly during this crisis for companies to know how to react. But it's extremely difficult. Why? Because let's not forget that in the hospitality sector, 90% of the companies are micro companies and 99% are SMEs. So only 1% are big companies who maybe know how to deal with these things. So that is something. Recovery and resilience facility, we are really counting on those, and especially with regard to skilling and upskilling, as I said. And I really hope, at least it's what we see in the press releases, we hope to have a fully update discussion in our next SSD within the next week from DG EMPL. Did really member states include tourism, namely upskilling and unskilling on the hospitality sector, high in their agenda? That is our question, and we really hope, we have really encouraged a lot member states to do that. In the medium term, what we really consider also from the Commission side, we need some kind of recommendation. We know it's extremely delicate and very difficult, but with the moratorium for the loans coming to an end in February this year, we saw the threat of many companies once again putting in the position that maybe they needed to close. And we don't know what will happen next year when the state aid will be finished. The threat of insolvency is still there. So what would we need? We would need really to help those companies, at least those who are valuable companies and who have really performed well in the past. Those who already had problems, maybe it's not the case, but at least those valuable companies who could actually perform well in the future. And then in future terms, that's where we really see a lot of the infrastructural changes that need to be put in place in terms of digital, in terms of sustainability, and above all, our apprenticeship schemes. We really hope that as we were talking, this upskilling and reskilling is really put forward in the recovery plans, and we really hope that this will be the way forward to make sure that we comply, all member states, with the council recommendation on the implementation of apprenticeship schemes. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I mean, I think we've got a serious problem there in terms of the number of apprentices that have actually lost their opportunity to finish their apprenticeship because of the difficulties that in your sector, but in all sectors, employers have been under enormous pressure just to survive, and it's often very difficult. And it's interesting to see, Kerstin mentioned it from Germany, but there's many other countries too, where governments have put resources in to ensure that there was a possibility to continue to do for apprentices to continue their training, whether because of subsidies that were provided by the government or other measures. And it's important as well to be able to see the role there that can be played. But it's important to ensure as well that obviously this continues, because the risk is still there, and particularly in your sector, but not only in your sector, so that it will still be. I've seen recent figures, and in many countries, the number of apprenticeship enrollments has gone down quite dramatically in the last 12 months. And there is going to be a real need to be able to build that back up in the next period. It's going to be difficult, I think, for many sectors. Let me turn now to the construction sector. We've had some comments made about soft skills. We've had some about digital skills. And clearly, one of the very important areas in your sector is, of course, green skills. And are you seeing in your own organizations a readiness to take on these green skills and to introduce them into the apprenticeship curricula? Or is this process taking too long? Is it a bit slow in terms of updating the curricula and the examinations and indeed the qualifications to ensure that these green skills are actually being taught? Angela or Rolf, who would like to speak?
May I say something?
You may indeed.
Okay, thank you. So green digitalization is the goal that we have, but as I already tell you, construction companies are small companies, and so they actually, most of them are not ready to the switch. And so training institutions and also social partners have to work on it and to help them to reach the goal, to go forward. And I just want to give you an example of what we did in Udine in our training school. We bought together with ANCE a simulator for working machines. This simulates how excavators and cranes and other kind of machines work. And this is useful for two things: to make older people, to make them use something more digital, and to attract young people in our world, and also to use something that is less dangerous, because if you are not able to use an excavator, and danger can occur, and with the simulator, no danger. And also it's green, and it wants to make it was to give a new idea, a new way that you can see when you look at the construction sector. Sector is an old sector, is seeing like an old sector with no digitalization, with no green aspects. In this way, the imaging can change.
Thank you very much, Angela. And I've got a request from Rolf. He would like to add 2 sentences. And then we're going to see exactly if they are 2 sentences, and we look forward to doing them.
with a comma. So we should not underestimate workers. We should not underestimate companies. A lot of things are ongoing. One example is this project where FIEC and us are just partner. It is site construct that deals with robotization in building scaffolds and using scaffolds. BIM is used in so many companies. Nevertheless, we have a lot to do, and that is especially working with wood, old professions not used in construction, but in future their skills are again, that is growing, picking up old skills.
Well, we'll call that 2 sentences. And let's move on. Let's go back to Norbert. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for participating in this discussion. It was very, very interesting. And it's particularly useful, I think, for all of us to be able to see the work that's being done by social partners to support the design and delivery of apprenticeship training. And your testimonies have been really very interesting, I think, for us all. But I will now ask for Norbert to speak, and then I will slowly bring this session to a close. So Norbert, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. And I was listening carefully, and it was very interesting. I will not make a summary in the sense of content-wise, but I would like to say a few words to each of you speakers. I would like to start with Kerstin, if I may. And I think what I learned is, of course, you have highlighted the importance of high quality and a fair level playing field, which I think is very important when we talk about the sectoral approaches. I would like to thank you, Kerstin, in particular, for not only mentioning the fact that now with the pledge under the Alliance, we also have the European Framework for Quality and Effective Apprenticeship as a let's say, you have to tick the box that you respect the criteria which we have established. And I think it's a very important progress we have, that not anybody can just join the Alliance as such. So you have to respect the criteria. But that brings me also to what you have mentioned. I'm really thankful, particularly to you, having read our staff working document, because who reads our staff working document? But you read it, and Jeff as well, of course. And I found it very interesting what you remark was made about perception. While member states think that social partners are involved, okay, 70%, we also consulted you, stakeholders, not only social partners and others, and there it looks a bit different. So I think there's still some things to be done, and to explain also the difference of the perception. And if you allow me also to say that the staff document is also, I think, interesting in the sense that it has country fishes for each country, the latest information about apprenticeship. So please, the link was there, so have a look. Then I would like to move to Marta. I think you have given us also very good examples. I think if you can also share them from Austria, Sweden, and Latvia, what happens, particularly at national level. I think for you, it's clear that you mentioned the adaptable and diverse career choices which are needed for that the sector remains attractive. And of course, you said that strong collective bargaining helps. So, but you also mentioned that at the end, you need to involve all relevant partners. Thanks also for raising the opportunities of EU funding, because that is also often not that much mentioned. So thanks a lot to you. And if I then move on to Angela, if I may, of course, FIEC is a long-standing partner. You mentioned that from the very beginning. And you mentioned a lot of initiatives you're doing together also with the trade unions, Pact for Skills, Blueprint. But we learned a lot as well from concrete examples. So what we really need to hear more is what you mentioned in Udine. I would be very curious to hear more about this. And of course, I think we have to thank you a lot, because also the SMEs we have got in the Alliance was mainly through FIEC that you have also highlighted always the importance of SMEs and their support needed for the twin transition you mentioned, going digital and the construction mainly going green. That's of course very important. And last but not least, Rolf, yes, I think you highlighted, I found it very important, the structure, so the open method of coordination in which we are working. And when you mentioned the European Alliance for Apprenticeship, I liked a lot that you said there's no hierarchy and that the social partners cannot work alone. They also need VET providers, they need all the other partners. I would like to know a bit more about the Sockerbau cross-border apprenticeship project you have mentioned, because particularly the French presidency is really now having as a priority the mobility of apprenticeship and also in view of cross-border cooperation. So if you have information on that, I would be very interested. And I found also very interesting, I think for everybody, the fact that apprenticeship is only a starting point. And you need to immediately think about the further training. That brings us to a comprehensive strategy. So thanks a lot for raising that. And allow me to quote one sentence from you at the very end, when you say we cannot dig out an old tree and plant it somewhere else. I fully agree. And I think this is also a very important, let's say, image when we talk about greening of our societies. I hope first of all, that we keep the trees, because we lose a lot of them, forests worldwide. But also, of course, we cannot simply plant them. I know that there was Fürst Pückler, which is a famous personality in Germany, who did that once. But it is a very difficult exercise to dig out all trees. So thanks a lot to all of you speakers. Thanks to Jeff for the moderation and for Ecaris having made this possible today. I would like just to say that our next big event, and for the first time, if COVID figures allow, it will be a hybrid meeting, 9th and 10th of December in Vienna in the railway sector. The European Alliance for Apprenticeship goes on track. It will be a contribution to the European Year of Rail. And if you have the chance to follow the event, it will be also web streamed, at least the main parts. So you're more than welcome to join this event. Thanks a lot again. And I think, Jeff, you want to even to make a group picture now. So back to you.
Yes, that's true. And I'd like you all to be on your best behavior, because apparently there's going to be a photo taken, not by me, you'll be pleased to know. There's a photo that's going to be taken for future purposes. So are you ready? The question is, I don't know when the photo is being taken and whether it's been taken yet. So we just have to hope that it is.
It should make click, no?
You would think so, but I haven't noticed that yet. So, okay, well, we just have to hope that the photo has been taken. And I'd like to thank you again for your input. It was very enjoyable. And I hope that our listeners were able to take a lot of benefit from what you had to say, and I'm sure they have. Norbert has mentioned the fact that there's going to be a high-level European Year of Rail conference on the 9th and 10th of December. Apparently on the 19th of November, there's going to be a regional seminar for candidate countries on apprenticeship training. So there's a number of different events that are going to take place. And for our listeners, we will be posting the links in the chat, and we look forward to welcoming you again for those of you who want to learn more and more about what's going on in terms of apprenticeship training in Europe. So thanks to you all, and I wish you a very good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.